Hello beautiful people, I'm Natalie-Katelynn and my channel name is TheStylishMed. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time stopping by, please do subscribe to my channel and join the family. We're so close to 500 subscribers, it's so exciting. And if this isn't your first time coming here, then thank you so much for coming back again. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about living off campus in China, living in an apartment in China, the likes. I get a lot of questions when I post on my Instagram and Snapchat from my apartment, and people ask me all kinds of things. So I figured I would do a video on it and like shed some light. So I hope you find this video informative and it'll help you maybe if you're looking to live off campus, or if you're just looking for an apartment, or I don't know, maybe you're just interested in knowing stuff about China. So the first thing I want to talk about is the cost of everything, which is the most important thing. Before you get yourself an apartment, obviously the first thing you want to think about is the cost of everything. And so in China, because it's so big and there's different kinds of, environments, if I can say it like that, the cost of like the rent differs, like greatly differs from place to place. For example, in my city, because it's a smaller city and it's not like, a big metropolitan city, the cost of living here is obviously way cheaper than people that live in Shanghai and Beijing and Hangzhou, in the bigger cities. And so naturally, my rent will be way cheaper than a person who lives in Shanghai. With that, when you decide to move off campus, you have to consider like some landlords will want the rent every 3 months, some will want it every 6 months, and some will want the full 1 year payment of the rent. And so on your contract, everything will be stated. You'll pay your deposit and your 3 months rent, and then your 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, or you'll pay your deposit and your 6 months, and then your next 6 months, or you pay your deposit and your full year there and then. When you first move out, you have to consider your rent, and then you also have to consider an agent fee. If you're using an agent to find your apartment, the agent fee will be half the price of 1 month's rent. So if your if your rent is like 1,400, your agent's fee that you're going to pay the agent is 700 RMB, and that's like a once-off payment. You pay her once and you never have to see her again, unless maybe you guys want to just keep in touch if you have problems with your apartment and your landlord, whatever. And apart from that, you also have to consider your property fee. Property fee is basically a fee that covers like management of the place, like all the facilities in the area and all that. The landlord will either charge it to you separately or they'll include it in the rent. I paid mine separately in this apartment, and in the first apartment I paid it together with the rent. And then apart from that, you also have to consider your bills, your gas, your water, and your electricity. It basically just depends on how much you use and the area you live in, but I found that it's way cheaper than when I lived in the dorm, and so I really love that. When I was staying on campus, I could use up to 300 RMB for electricity alone in a month, and that was ridiculous considering I wasn't even doing much. And now that I live off campus, I only use maybe about 300 RMB for the 2 months, because your bills get billed to you every 2 months, not every month. For my electricity, I usually pay something a little more than 100 RMB, but if I like really use up electricity that month, if it's like really cold and I'm using the AC all day every day, then it'll come up to like maybe 200, 300. And then my water and my gas never exceed 50 each. That's that about the cost of living. And then the next thing you want to consider is how you're actually going to find the apartment. And there's 3 ways to go about it basically. You can either use apps like My58. If you watched my must-have apps in China, then you already know the app I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched that video, I will leave a link on the screen and also in the description box so you can check it out there. And so if you don't want to use apps, you can also find an agent, or you can just wait for like adverts and stuff that get posted in group chats and all that. Both times that I got an apartment, I used the apps. I put in what I was looking for in the app, and then I found the different places, and then I went to see them and I picked the one that I liked. Literally that simple. And why I did that is because sometimes these agents are really lazy to find exactly what you're looking for, and so they'll tell you, oh no, you won't find an apartment like that, or oh, I couldn't find anything, this is what's available now. And also sometimes they actually try to scam you and con you. And also you should stay away from people that know people that know people. What I mean is, if I'm looking for an apartment and then I ask my friend, and then she tells me, oh, this person does that kind of stuff, and then I go to that person, and then that person wants to charge me, but then he's actually going to use an agent to find me the apartment. And that's just ridiculous, because now you're paying a lot of people for something that you could have easily done yourself. And so using an app eliminates that need of even having to go through someone, because you talk directly to the person who's got the apartment. And then the next thing I want to talk about that people like always ask me is like, how are the landlords in China? I feel like each landlord is different, honestly, and I honestly believe that if you don't give your landlord problems, he or she won't give you problems. For example, like I already mentioned, I've stayed in 2 apartments. My first landlady was the sweetest person. She was so nice to me. When I moved in, she got me a pink microwave, even though I don't like pink, but it was really sweet that, you know, she was thinking that, okay, this girl is coming here and I want to make her comfortable and all that. So she got me a pink microwave. She got me 10 plates and 10 cereal bowls. I don't know what I was going to do with 10 plates and 10 cereal bowls, but you know, that's just how nice she was and how thoughtful she was. And when I left the apartment, she actually wanted me to take the stuff, but I was like, no, I'll just leave it. My current landlady is also a very sweet woman. She's really old and she's so nice. She's always asking me about my goals and checking up on me, like, how far with this, have you done this yet? She's really, really, really sweet. She always like gives me advice and stuff on how to make sure I live my best life and how to succeed in life, and she's just a really amazing person. So I've never had a problem with the landlord. There's also another group of landlords, like landlords that just are very hostile to foreigners because they've had bad experiences with foreigners. For example, if you try looking for an apartment in my city right now, a lot of landlords will tell you, no, I'm not renting out to a foreigner. I'm not giving international students my apartment because I've had very bad experiences. And it's really unfortunate that that's happened, because a lot of people ruin it for the rest of us. Like, I've not done anything, but this person has a bad experience because what someone did. Maybe he used to make noise, maybe they used to, I don't know, break things in the apartment, maybe they never paid their rent on time, and it's stuff like that. So it just depends. Generally, you can't speak for all the landlords and all the landladies, but I feel like if you're cool, you'll also be cool. The next thing I want to talk about is what it's like to live amongst Chinese people. Now, in my first apartment, I lived alone. Like, on the entire floor, I was the only person there, and that was cool at first, but with time it became weird. I was like, what if something happens to me and I scream and nobody comes? You know, it was kind of weird, but I actually liked it. And then moving to this place, I have neighbors on both sides of like my apartment. And so on this side, it's like an entire family. Like, there's the grandparents, both grandparents live in there, and then the wife and the husband, and then the children stay in there as well. So it's like a whole family, a whole little, you know, community living in there. And then on the other side is just the man, his wife, and their child. And you know, they all mind their own business, and I don't have a problem with them. When I moved in, the one family was like really nosy. They wanted to know, like, what am I about? You know, what am I doing? Why am I here? Type of thing. But I quickly like made it clear that I'll be staying out of their way, and they should, you know, equally do the same. And we haven't had any problems at all. In fact, we're cool. Then the next thing, like, this used to bother me when I first moved off campus in 2017. Yeah. It was really, 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 really annoying. Like, the first time it happened, I was sleeping. It was during the holidays. I was sleeping, and I woke up to the sound of what sounded like gunshots. I was panicking. Now, like I said, I was the only person on my floor. I didn't know what to do. So I went to my balcony and I was trying to see if there's like commotion outside, but like there was nothing happening. And so I was like, what is going on? And then I figured it was fireworks and firecrackers. Guys, the fireworks and the firecrackers will literally irk you. Like, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Saturday, it doesn't matter what day it is, there will be fireworks going off. And this was my problem until this year when my city banned fireworks and firecrackers. That was literally the best thing to ever happen to me in China. But anyway, so I don't have that problem anymore, but I think people in some cities might have this problem of fireworks and firecrackers, and there's really nothing you can do about it. The next thing that people ask me all the time is, do I need to be able to speak Chinese to live in an apartment in China? Now, there's no yes and no answer to this, because you can survive living in an apartment in China in a Chinese environment without speaking Chinese, and you can also struggle, you know. So it just depends. But I would say if this is like your first year in China, I would definitely not advise you to live off campus. I'd tell you to stay in the dorm for like the first year or 2 years maybe, and then live off campus, because you still need to learn about the environment you're in. You still need to learn the basics of China. You need to know like the basics of the language. You need to know a few things about the place you're in before you actually immerse yourself into this whole new community you know nothing about. The most important part, like where you're gonna need Chinese, is finding an apartment, because it's going to be easier for you to negotiate a deal for yourself. It's going to be easier for you to communicate with your landlord. And like I said, some landlords are a bit hostile to foreigners because, one, they haven't had the experience of having a foreigner in the apartment, and two, maybe they've had a bad experience. So if you go there and you speak Chinese and they can communicate with you, then they're going to be more relaxed and more willing to actually let you live in the apartment. I've had cases where I was the one helping people find apartments because they couldn't speak Chinese well enough, and then the landlords were refusing. They're like, nah, I don't want a person who can't speak Chinese. How am I gonna deal with them? And then they're like, okay, you speak Chinese, so give me your contact details, and if I have a problem, I'll take it up with you. And then now I'm like the one in the middle, and if that person, I mean, I don't know what you're gonna be doing in the apartment. I don't want to be the one who's responsible for that. So it kind of puts other people in different situations. So if you speak Chinese, you'll be able to sort yourself out. And also, with that said, the reason that I got my apartments both times was because I could communicate well enough. I could communicate with the landlady. The first one, my first landlady, didn't even live in the city. She was from a different city far from here, and she had an apartment here, and she didn't want to give her new apartment, and she doesn't stay in that area, to a foreigner. But when she came and saw me and met me and we communicated and talked, she was actually really excited. She was like, oh wow, I actually wanted to give you my apartment. I trust you, and I like you, stuff like that. But if it had been a person who can't speak Chinese, I don't think should have given the person in that apartment. And then this apartment, it's a really old lady, and if you stay in China, then you know that the way old people speak and the way that the younger generation speaks in China is totally different. Like totally different. Sometimes I don't even understand what she's saying, and my Chinese is apparently really good. So but because I could communicate with her and talk to her, she was really fascinated by that, and so she was like, okay, I'll give you my apartment. And we even then managed to negotiate to a lower price. I only pay 1,100 for my apartment, which is like a bargain, considering a lot of people here are paying like 1,500, 1,400, 1,600, 1,700, But because I could speak Chinese, it came down. Also, apart from just finding an apartment, if you have an emergency, what's going to happen? How are you going to call the police? How are you going to call an ambulance? How are you going to scream to your neighbors to help you? You'll scream, and then they will come, and you guys looking at each other, and then you're like trying to do sign language in your emergency situation. So at least know the basics of living, at least know the basics of Chinese. Like, be able to construct some sentences before you decide to actually live outside in China. And then obviously when you have notices from your property managers and stuff, and other, general things, they're going to come in Chinese. So if you don't speak Chinese, maybe you're going to miss out on important notices. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to talk to people, because you're going to be living alone in a Chinese environment, and no one is obliged to speak English to you, but you might have to speak Chinese to them. Then the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that not all apartments are the same here. In the same complex, literally in the same building. For example, my apartment looks totally different from my neighbor's apartment. It's so weird. So it's totally different. And so not all apartments are the same. I can't say this is my house, this is what all the houses in China are like, because I'd be lying, because they're all different. And so if you guys are interested in seeing what my apartment looks like, I will do a separate apartment tour video for you guys and show you what my Chinese apartment looks like. So guys, I hope this answered all the questions that you might have had about living off campus in China or living in an apartment in China. And if you have any other questions, leave them in the comment section below and I will get back to you. And you can also contact me on my social media and I will respond to you there as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, share with your friends and family and your enemies and whoever you might want to share it with. I will see you in my next video. Bye.